Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. His ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, mapping new systems and looking for planets that humans might one day call home. The work was slow and often boring, but Jake knew it was important for Earth's future. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Lisa Bryant from her science station. She was the ship's chief science officer and one of the smartest people Jake had ever worked with. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel as she studied the readings. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked as he walked over to look at her screen. "It's a signal, but not like anything we've seen before. The pattern is too complex to be natural, but it's encrypted in a way that our computers can't break. Wait, there's something else. The signal mentions Earth and humans by name." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. Earth had never made contact with alien life before. The idea that someone out there knew about humans and was talking about them was both exciting and scary. "Danny, can you clean up that signal?" Jake called to the communications officer. Danny Walsh had been working with alien signals for years, even though this was the first real one they had found. He was good at his job and never gave up when faced with a puzzle. "I'm trying, sir, but whoever sent this really didn't want anyone else to read it. I can make out a few words, though. Something about Protocol 7 and keeping humans contained." "Contained," Jake repeated. The word made him feel cold inside. "Amanda, I want you to check our weapons and shields. Something doesn't feel right about this." Amanda Torres was the ship's security chief and had served in Earth's military before joining the space program. She was tough and smart, and Jake trusted her completely. "Already on it, Captain. Everything is ready if we need it." The signal suddenly stopped, and for a moment the bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Then Danny's station started beeping loudly. "Captain, we have company." Big company. The main screen showed space in front of them, but now there were lights appearing where none had been before. The lights grew bigger and brighter until Jake could see that they were ships. Dozens of ships, all much larger than the Horizon. "Those are not human ships," Lisa said quietly. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, surrounding the Horizon, but not attacking. They were beautiful in a strange way, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. Jake had dreamed of this moment his whole life, but now that it was happening, he felt more afraid than excited. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Horizon," he said into his communications system. "Please identify yourselves." The answer came immediately, but not through their radio. Instead, a column of light appeared in the center of the bridge, and when it faded, there was an alien standing there. It was tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of blue crystal. Its eyes were large and dark, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like music. "I am Ambassador Zeph Kaller of the Galactic Council. We have been watching your species for many years, Captain Morrison. The time has come for humanity to take its place in the greater galaxy." Jake tried to keep his voice steady. "We didn't know anyone was watching us. Why didn't you make contact before now? Your species was not ready. You have been fighting wars and destroying your planet. But our observations show that you have finally learned to work together and reach for the stars. This is why we have come." Lisa stepped forward. "You said something about Protocol 7 in that transmission. What is Protocol 7? For just a moment, the alien's perfect composure seemed to crack. The transmission was not meant for human ears. It dealt with matters that do not concern your species. If it mentions humans by name, then it concerns us," Jake said firmly. Ambassador Zeph Kaller was quiet for a long moment. "Very well. Protocol 7 is a set of guidelines for integrating new species into the Galactic Council. It ensures that the process goes smoothly for everyone involved." Something about the way he said it made Jake think there was more to it than that. But before he could ask more questions, the alien continued, "Your ship will accompany our fleet to Nexus Prime, the capital of the Galactic Council. There you will meet with the other member species and learn about the opportunities that await humanity. Your leaders on Earth have already been contacted and are sending a diplomatic team to meet us there." "What if we refuse?" Amanda asked. "Why would you refuse?" the alien replied. We offer you technology beyond your dreams, an end to disease and hunger, and membership in a civilization that spans the galaxy. What could Earth possibly offer that would be better than this? Jake looked around at his crew. They all seemed as uncertain as he felt. This was supposed to be the greatest day in human history, but something felt wrong. The alien was being too helpful, too eager to give humanity everything they had ever wanted. We'll come with you, Jake said finally. But we want to maintain communication with Earth and keep detailed records of everything we see, of course. Ambassador Zefkaler said with what might have been a smile. We encourage curiosity and learning among all our member species, as the alien vanished in another column of light. Jake wondered why those words felt more like a threat than a promise. President Claire Hamilton stepped out of the shuttle and onto the surface of Nexus Prime. The air was warm and smelled like flowers, even though they were standing on what looked like a landing pad made of some kind of smooth white stone. Around them, the city stretched up into the sky, with buildings that seemed to float in the air without any support. Welcome to Nexus Prime, said Ambassador Zefkaler, who had been waiting for them when they arrived. This city has been the heart of galactic civilization for over 10,000 years. Claire looked around at her team. General Peter Collins stood at attention like he always did, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. Chief Diplomat Susan Ward was trying to hide how amazed she was by everything they were seeing. Dr. Kevin Price had his scanner out and was already taking readings of everything around them. It's incredible, Claire said, and she meant it. The buildings seemed to be alive, changing color slowly as they watched. Alien beings walked or floated or crawled along paths that appeared in the air as they needed them. She had seen pictures and videos, but being here in person was completely different. This is only the beginning, the ambassador said. Come, the council is eager to meet you. They followed him through the city, and with each step Claire became more impressed and more worried at the same time. The technology here was so far beyond anything Earth had that it was like comparing a campfire to the sun. If these aliens wanted to destroy humanity, there would be nothing humans could do to stop them. The council chamber was a huge dome that seemed to be made of transparent crystal. Inside, representatives from 12 different species sat around a circular table that floated in the center of the room. Claire recognized some of them from the files Earth had been given, but seeing them in person was still shocking. There were beings made of gas, others that looked like walking trees, and some that seemed to be made of pure energy. Honored council members, Ambassador Zefkaler said, I present President Claire Hamilton and the diplomatic team from Earth. An alien that looked like a giant spider made of silver metal spoke first. Its voice came from speakers around the room since it had no mouth. We welcome humanity to the galactic community. You have shown great progress in recent years. Thank you, Claire said. We're honored to be here and excited to learn about what membership in the council would mean for Earth. What followed was the most incredible sales pitch Claire had ever heard. The council offered Earth technology that would solve every problem humanity had ever faced. Clean energy that could power the whole planet forever. Medical treatments that could cure any disease and extend human life by hundreds of years. Food. Production systems that could feed billions without harming the environment. These gifts come with very reasonable requirements, said a being that looked like a walking crystal formation. You must agree to limit human expansion to the Terran sector, which includes your solar system and 50 nearby star systems. Your military development must be overseen by council observers to ensure it remains defensive in nature. And you must agree not to research certain technologies that could be dangerous to galactic peace. General Collins spoke up. What kind of dangerous technologies? Weapons of mass destruction, dimensional manipulation, certain forms of artificial intelligence, the spider alien replied. These restrictions exist for the safety of all species. Dr. Price had been quiet during the presentation, but now he raised his hand. I've been studying the historical records you provided, and I noticed something strange. Several species that are mentioned in older documents don't seem to exist anymore. What happened to them? There was a moment of silence that felt very long. Then the crystal being spoke. Some species choose isolation when they reach a certain level of development. Others transcend physical existence and move beyond our understanding. The galaxy is vast and full of mysteries. Transcend physical existence, Susan Ward repeated. What does that mean exactly? It is difficult to explain to a species that has not yet reached that level of understanding. Ambassador Zeth Kaller said, "Perhaps we should focus on more immediate matters." That evening, the human team was given quarters in a beautiful tower that overlooked the city. Claire stood on the balcony and watched alien ships moving through the sky like glowing fish swimming through water. Everything was perfect, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The treaty they're offering is identical to treaties given to other species, Susan said as she joined Claire on the balcony. Word for word identical. I've been comparing documents all evening. That seems efficient, Claire said, or lazy. Or like they've done this exact same thing many times before and don't want to bother changing anything. Dr. Price came out to join them, looking excited and worried at the same time. I've been analyzing the translation system they use, and I found something interesting. Sometimes it glitches and shows the original alien language for a split second before translating. I caught a few phrases that were being discussed by council members when they thought we couldn't understand. What kind of phrases? General Collins asked as he stepped outside. Things like containing the anomaly, preventing cascade failure, maintaining the protocol. They were talking about humanity, but not like new friends they want to welcome. More like a problem they need to solve. Claire felt cold despite the warm air. What kind of problem? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. There are gaps in their historical records, gaps that seem deliberate. Species don't just vanish or transcend without leaving some kind of trace behind. Be careful, Claire warned. We're guests here, and we don't know what the consequences might be if they think we're being too curious. I'll be careful, Dr. Price promised. But, Madame President, I think we need to be very sure we understand what we're agreeing to before we sign anything. Claire nodded and looked back out at the alien city. Somewhere out there, Captain Morrison and his crew were probably having similar doubts about their new alien friends. She hoped they were being just as careful. The next morning brought new tours and new demonstrations of amazing technology, but Claire found herself paying more attention to what the aliens didn't say than to what they did. Every answer led to more questions, and every gift seemed to come with strings attached when Ambassador Zeth Kaller showed them a museum of galactic history. Claire noticed that certain displays were empty, with no explanation for what had once been there. When she asked about it, she was told that some exhibits were being updated from what to what. She asked from incomplete information to complete information, was the answer, but the ambassador's crystalline face gave nothing away. Claire was beginning to understand that humanity's invitation to join the Galactic Council might not be the wonderful opportunity it appeared to be. Dr. Alex Turner stared at the equations on his computer screen and shook his head in disbelief. For the third time that day, he had checked his calculations and come to the same impossible conclusion. The data that Captain Morrison had transmitted from the horizon showed that human technology was operating in ways that violated every known law of physics. Maria, you need to see this, he called to his colleague across the lab. Maria Santos was one of the best engineers at the Global Science Institute, and she had been working with Alex to analyze the alien technology data. She walked over and looked at his screen, then frowned. That can't be right. According to these readings, our faster-than-light drive is using quantum principles that the Galactic Council says are impossible. That's what I thought too, but I've checked it over and over. Look at this data from their ships. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it all follows very specific rules. They use contained fusion for power, manipulated gravity for propulsion, and quantum entanglement for communication. All of it works within what they call the fundamental laws of physics. Maria sat down at her own computer and started running her own analysis. But our technology doesn't follow those rules at all. We use quantum uncertainty for our FTEL drive, which their science says should collapse the wave function and destroy the ship. We use dimensional folding for our communications, which they claim is theoretically impossible. Exactly. Either human science is completely wrong about how the universe works, or the Galactic Council has been deliberately limiting their own technological development for some reason. Alex pulled up another set of data that had been bothering him for days. Look at this energy signature from their fleet. According to their own technology, those ships should need massive fusion reactors to power their systems. But the actual energy output is only about 60% of what it should be, like they're intentionally running their technology at reduced efficiency. Maria said slowly, or like they're afraid to push it to its full potential. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, General Collins was having his own disturbing discoveries. He had been meeting with military officers from other council species, sharing stories and comparing technologies. What he learned made him very uncomfortable. The Zephyrian military used standardized council weapons that hadn't been upgraded in over 200 years. The Crystalline Defense Force followed tactical doctrines that were created by the Council and never questioned. Every species' military seemed to use the exact same equipment and the same strategies. Don't you ever want to try new approaches? He asked Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian fleet. The Council's methods have proven effective for maintaining peace, the alien replied. Why would we risk instability by experimenting? But surely your species had its own military traditions before joining the Council. Commander Veltar looked confused. We have always followed Council protocols. This is the way of civilization. That conversation troubled Collins more than he wanted to admit. It was like the alien had no memory of his species ever being independent. Captain Morrison was having his own problems in orbit around Nexus Prime. He had been using the horizon sensors to study the planet below, partly out of curiosity and partly because something felt wrong about the whole situation. What he found made him call an emergency meeting with his senior staff. I've been scanning the planet for the past week, he told Lisa, Danny, and Amanda. The official population of Nexus Prime is supposed to be about 50 million beings from various species. But the energy readings I'm getting suggest a population at least 10 times that size. Maybe their technology is more power-hungry than we thought, Lisa suggested. That's what I thought too, until I found these. Morrison brought up a display showing the underground structure of the planet. There are massive installations beneath the surface that don't appear on any official maps. The energy signatures are enormous, and they're heavily shielded against scanning. Amanda leaned forward to study the display. Those look like military installations. Or prisons. That's what worries me. I tried to get a closer look with our deep scan sensors, but as soon as I started the scan, Council security ships moved to intercept us. They were very polite about it, but they made it clear that we needed to move to a safer orbital position. Safer for who? Danny asked. That's exactly what I wondered. Back on Earth, Alex and Maria were making even more disturbing discoveries. They had been analyzing quantum signatures from Morrison's sensor logs and comparing them to theoretical models for advanced physics. Alex, look at this, Maria said, her voice shaking slightly. The energy patterns from those underground installations match theoretical models for dimensional manipulation. Not just communication or travel, but actual manipulation of space-time itself. That's impossible. The energy requirements would be massive, and the risk of dimensional collapse would be enormous. Unless they've been doing it for thousands of years and know exactly how to control it, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Maria, what if the Galactic Council isn't just hiding advanced technology from us? What if they're hiding the existence of other dimensions, maybe even other versions of reality? That would explain why they're so careful about following specific rules. If you're manipulating the fundamental structure of reality, one mistake could destroy everything. The implications were staggering. If the Council had access to dimensional technology, then their offer to share their knowledge with humanity was either incredibly generous or incredibly dangerous. Given everything else they had learned, Alex was starting to think it was the latter. He opened a secure communication channel to Nexus Prime and sent his findings to Dr. Price. If the human diplomatic team was going to make decisions about Earth's future, they needed to know what they were really dealing with. Dr. Price received the transmission while he was alone in his quarters studying Council historical records. Alex's findings confirmed his worst fears about the gaps he had been finding in the official history. Several species that had been mentioned in older documents had indeed vanished completely, but not through transcendence or isolation according to the fragmentary records he had been able to piece together. These species had all reached a certain level of technological development before disappearing. They had all been working on advanced physics research, particularly in the areas of dimensional manipulation and quantum mechanics, the same areas where human technology was apparently violating council laws of physics. Price realized that humanity might not be the first species to develop technology that the council considered dangerous. But if that was true, then what had happened to the others? And what did the council plan to do about humanity? He needed to find more evidence, but he was running out of time. President Hamilton had been pressured to make a decision about the treaty within the next few days. If they signed it, humanity would be committed to following council rules for technological development, rules that seemed designed to prevent exactly the kind of breakthroughs that made humans special. Price made a decision that would change everything. He was going to break into the restricted sections of the council archives and find out what had really happened to those missing species. If humanity was walking into a trap, he was going to make sure they knew about it before it was too late. Dr. Price waited until the early hours of the morning, when most of the council staff would be sleeping or engaged in whatever passed for sleep among the various alien species. The archive building was quiet except for the soft humming of the environmental systems that kept the air breathable for dozens of different life forms. He had spent days studying the security protocols and had finally found a weakness. The council's computer systems were incredibly advanced, but they were also very old and had been built with the assumption that no one would ever want to access restricted information. After all, why would any species want to learn things that the council had deemed dangerous or unnecessary? Price made his way to a maintenance terminal that was used to service the environmental controls. These terminals had basic access to the archive database for diagnostic purposes, but with the right commands, they could also be used to access deeper levels of the system. He connected his portable scanner to the terminal and began running a program that Maria Santos had designed back on Earth. The program was based on human quantum computing principles that the council claimed were impossible, which meant their security systems had no defenses against it. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly his scanner lit up with data. The program had found a way past the council's security protocols and was downloading classified files at an incredible rate. Price watched in amazement as thousands of documents flowed across his screen. Most of them were in alien languages that his translator couldn't handle, but some were in the common galactic language that all council members used. What he read made his blood run cold. The files contained references to something called the predecessor event, a catastrophe that had nearly destroyed the galaxy thousands of years ago. According to the documents, an ancient species known as the Builders had developed technology so advanced that it had begun to tear holes in the fabric of reality itself. The Builders had mastered dimensional manipulation, time travel, and something called quantum consciousness transfer. They had built an empire that spanned multiple galaxies and dimensions, but their success had come at a terrible price. Their technology was causing reality itself to become unstable. Price found a file that contained what appeared to be a first-hand account of the final days of the Builder civilization. The document was fragmentary and parts of it were corrupted, but he could make out enough to understand what had happened. The Builders had realized that their technology was destroying the universe, but by then it was too late to simply stop using it. The damage they had caused was spreading like a disease, turning entire star systems into regions where the laws of physics no longer worked properly. They had faced a choice between watching reality collapse or finding some way to repair the damage they had caused. They had chosen to repair it, but the only way to do so was to sacrifice themselves. Using their mastery of time and dimensional physics, they had scattered their genetic material across countless worlds throughout the galaxy, then used their remaining technology to seal the dimensional rifts they had created. The cost had been the complete extinction of their civilization. But they had saved the universe. Price stared at the screen as the implications hit him. The builders hadn't been aliens at all. According to the genetic data in these files, they had been human. Or rather, humanity were the descendants of the builders, scattered across the galaxy as a failsafe to ensure their species would survive. Even if their civilization was destroyed, the Galactic Council had been formed in the aftermath of the predecessor event by the species that had survived the near collapse of reality. Their primary mission wasn't to promote peace and cooperation between civilizations. It was to make sure that nothing like the predecessor event ever happened again, and that meant making sure that humanity never developed the same technology that had nearly destroyed everything. Price felt sick as he realized what this meant for Earth. The Council's offer of membership wasn't generosity, it was desperation. They had been watching humanity for centuries, waiting to see if the descendants of the builders would redevelop their ancestors' dangerous abilities. Now that humans had begun to show signs of advanced technological development, the Council was trying to control them before they could pose the same threat. Their predecessors had. The files contained detailed plans for what the Council called Protocol 7, a comprehensive program designed to guide humanity's development along safe paths. The technology they were offering Earth wasn't a gift. It was a cage designed to prevent humans from ever reaching their full potential. But the most disturbing part was what the files revealed about other species that had shown similar signs of advanced development. Over the millennia since the predecessor event, several civilizations had begun to develop technology that reminded the Council of the Builders. All of them had been offered membership in the Council, and all of them had accepted. None of them existed anymore. Price found records of the Xantharians, a species that had developed primitive dimensional folding technology. They had joined the Council eagerly and had been given access to advanced medical technology that extended their lifespans by hundreds of years. Within a few generations, their birth rate had dropped to almost nothing, and they had slowly died out. The Kathmori had discovered quantum consciousness transfer and had been offered Council membership along with advanced artificial intelligence systems. They had become so dependent on their AI assistants that they had gradually stopped thinking for themselves. Eventually, they had simply merged with their machines and lost all sense of individual identity. The pattern was always the same. Species that developed dangerous technology were welcomed into the Council with open arms, given wonderful gifts that solved all their problems, and then gradually guided toward extinction through subtle manipulation of their biology, psychology, or culture. Price realized that humanity was being offered the same choice that had been given to all those other species. Join the Council and slowly fade away, or refuse and face direct action to eliminate the threat they represented. He was so focused on reading the files that he almost didn't notice when the alarms started going off. The Council's security systems had finally detected his intrusion, and armed guards were probably already on their way to arrest him. Price quickly copied as much data as he could onto his portable scanner, then disconnected from the terminal and ran for the nearest exit. He had to get this information to President Hamilton before it was too late. As he made his way through the dark corridors of the archive building, he could hear the sound of approaching footsteps and alien voices calling out in languages he didn't recognize. The Council had discovered his breach of their security, and they would not be happy about what he had learned, but it didn't matter anymore. He had the proof that humanity needed to understand what they were really being offered. The question now was whether it would be enough to convince Earth's leaders to reject the Council's generous gifts and face the consequences of standing alone against a galactic civilization that had been planning for this moment for thousands of years. Price reached the exit just as the first security guards rounded the corner behind him. He burst through the door and into the alien night, clutching the scanner that contained the most important information in human history behind him. Alarms were ringing throughout the Council complex as the most carefully guarded secret in the galaxy began to unravel. President Hamilton stared at the data that Dr. Price had risked his life to obtain, her face growing paler with each page she read. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. Humanity wasn't just another species being invited to join the Galactic Council. They were the descendants of the civilization that had nearly destroyed the universe, and the Council had been planning for their return for thousands of years. This changes everything, she said quietly. It gets worse, Price replied. He looked exhausted and frightened, having barely escaped Council security the night before. I've been analyzing the genetic data in these files. The builders didn't just scatter human DNA randomly across the galaxy. They were very selective about where they placed it and how they modified it. He brought up a complex genetic chart on his portable scanner. Earth's humanity represents the largest concentration of builder genetics in the galaxy, but we're not the only group. There are at least 6 other human populations scattered across different star systems, each with slightly different genetic modifications. General Collins leaned forward to study the chart. Different how some groups were given enhanced physical abilities, others increased mental capacity, and still others were designed to be more sensitive to quantum fluctuations. The builders were trying to ensure that if their descendants ever needed to recreate their technology, they would have all the necessary abilities, and now those abilities are starting to manifest. Susan Ward said grimly, exactly, the reports from Earth confirm it. Children born after first contact with the Council are showing signs of enhanced dimensional awareness. Some can sense quantum fluctuations with their bare hands. Others seem to instinctively understand mathematical concepts that our best scientists struggle with. President Hamilton felt a chill run down her spine. What does the Council plan to do about it? Price accessed another section of the stolen files. They call it the Final Protocol. It's a genetic modification process that would permanently alter human DNA to remove the builder genetic markers. Humans would retain their intelligence and creativity, but they would never be able to access the advanced physics principles that made the builders so dangerous. A lobotomy for our entire species, Collins said angrily. The alternative, according to these files, is total extinction. The Council has contingency plans for sterilizing any star system that shows signs of uncontrolled builder technology activation. The weight of the revelation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Humanity was being offered a choice between voluntary genetic castration or complete annihilation. There's something else, Price continued. Captain Morrison's sensor data from the underground installations on Nexus Prime. I've been comparing it to the theoretical models in these files, and I think I know what those facilities are for. He brought up Morrison's readings alongside technical diagrams from the Council archives. These aren't just research facilities or weapons. They're containment systems for dimensional rifts. The Council has been studying captured builder technology for millennia, trying to understand how it works and how to defend against it. But that means they've been conducting experiments with the same technology they claim is too dangerous to exist, Ward pointed out, which suggests they're not as concerned about galactic safety as they pretend to be. They want to eliminate the builder threat, but they also want to control builder technology for themselves. President Hamilton stood up and began pacing around the room. Everything they had learned painted a picture of a galactic civilization built on lies and fear. The Council presented itself as a benevolent organization dedicated to peace and prosperity, but in reality it was a prison designed to prevent any species from threatening their monopoly on power. Have you been able to contact Captain Morrison? She asked. Communication is being monitored by Council security, but I managed to send him a coded message. He's been conducting more detailed scans of the underground facilities and has found something disturbing. Price connected to a secure communication channel and Morrison's voice filled the room, distorted by encryption but clearly tense. Madam President, what we found down there is nightmare fuel. The energy signatures suggest they're not just studying builder technology, they're actively using it. And there are what appear to be containment cells designed for living beings. Living beings, Hamilton repeated. The size and configuration of the cells suggest they're designed to hold humans. I think the Council has been capturing other groups of builder descendants and experimenting on them. The implications were staggering. If the Council had been secretly gathering human populations from across the galaxy, then Earth's humanity might be the last free group of builder descendants. In the universe, Captain, I need you to be very careful. If they realize what you've discovered, I understand, Madam President, but you need to know that there's something else. My science officer has been analyzing the quantum signatures from those experiments, and she thinks they're trying to artificially activate builder abilities in captured subjects. Dr. Price looked up sharply. That's insane. According to these files, forced activation of builder genetics is what caused the original dimensional instabilities. Maybe they think they can control it better than the original builders did, Morrison's voice replied. Or maybe they're desperate enough to take the risk. President Hamilton realized that they were faced with an impossible situation. The Council clearly saw humanity as an existential threat that needed to be eliminated or controlled. But if they were conducting their own experiments with builder technology, then they might be in the process of creating the very catastrophe they claim to be preventing. We need to make a decision, she said finally. Do we accept the Council's offer and hope they honor their promises? Or do we reject it and try to find another way? There is another option, Price said quietly. According to these files, the builders left behind more than just scattered human populations. They created fail-safe systems designed to activate. If their descendants were ever threatened with extinction, what kind of fail-safe systems? Hidden installations throughout the galaxy that contain preserved builder technology and knowledge. The files suggest that these systems are designed to respond to specific quantum signatures that would only be generated by humans in extreme danger. General Collins stood up. You're talking about activating builder technology ourselves. Didn't you just say that's what nearly destroyed the universe in the first place? The original builders were experimenting with forces they didn't fully understand, but they learned from their mistakes before they died. The fail-safe systems were designed with safeguards to prevent another dimensional cascade. President Hamilton looked around at her team. Each option they faced carried enormous risks, except the Council's offer and humanity would slowly fade into controlled extinction. Reject it, and they would face the combined military might of a galactic civilization. Try to activate the builder fail-safes and they might accidentally destroy reality itself. But as she thought about the children back on Earth who were beginning to show signs of their ancient heritage, she realized there was really only one choice they could make. We're going to reject the Council's offer, she said firmly. And we're going to find those builder installations. The die was cast. Humanity was about to discover whether they were truly the heirs to the most powerful civilization in galactic history, or just the last remnant of a species too dangerous to be allowed to exist. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything that had been seen in thousands of years. Representatives from all 12 member species had gathered in the Great Chamber, but this time the atmosphere was tense with barely controlled panic. Instead of the usual calm deliberation, Supreme Chancellor Vorix 9 stood at the center of the chamber, his ancient form crackling with energy that betrayed his emotional state. He was the oldest being in the galaxy, having lived through the original predecessor event and helped found the Council in its aftermath. The humans have discovered the truth, he announced, his voice echoing through the crystal dome. Dr. Price's breach of our archives has given them access to classified information about their origins and our true purpose. Ambassador Zeth Kaller stepped forward, his crystalline features reflecting the lights of the chamber. They have rejected our offer of membership and are demanding immediate withdrawal of all Council forces from their territory. More concerning, added the Silver Spider being, our deep space monitoring stations are detecting quantum fluctuations from several locations in human space. They appear to be attempting to locate and activate the builder fail systems. A wave of fear rippled through the assembled aliens. The builder failsafe installations were legendary among the Council leadership, hidden weapons of unimaginable power that the original builders had created as a last resort against extinction. How much do they know? Asked the crystalline being. Everything, Vorix 9 replied grimly. They know about the other human populations we have captured. They know about our experiments with builder technology. They know that we have been systematically eliminating any species that might threaten our control. Then, we must implement the final protocol immediately, declared a being made of swirling gas. We cannot allow the builder plague to spread again. It may already be too late for that, Vorix 9 said. Our monitoring stations on Earth are reporting massive quantum disturbances. Human children born since first contact are manifesting builder abilities at an accelerating rate. Some of them appear to be accessing genetic memories that should have been dormant for millennia. The implications were terrifying. If humanity was naturally reawakening their builder heritage, then the careful plans the Council had spent thousands of years developing were useless on Earth. Dr. Alex Turner was experiencing exactly what the Council feared. He stood in his laboratory surrounded by displays showing quantum equations that he had never learned but somehow understood completely. The knowledge was flowing into his mind like water rushing through a broken dam, the resonance cascade can. "Be controlled," he said to Maria Santos, who was watching him with a mixture of amazement and terror. The original builders made mistakes because they were pushing too hard too fast. But if we do it gradually, if we understand the underlying principles, Alex, you're scaring me. Yesterday, you couldn't solve basic quantum mechanics problems without a computer. Now you're talking about manipulating the fundamental forces of reality because I remember how to do it, he replied, his eyes bright with ancient knowledge. Not my memories, but the memories of my ancestors. The genetic locks are breaking down, and everything they knew is becoming available to us. Similar scenes were playing out across Earth as more and more humans began to access their hidden heritage. Children who had never studied physics were drawing diagrams of dimensional fold generators. Teenagers were describing mathematical concepts that Earth's greatest scientists had never imagined. President Hamilton received regular reports on these developments as she coordinated humanity's response to the Council's ultimatum. The quantum signatures that Dr. Price had discovered in the Builder archives were leading them to hidden installations. Throughout human space, Captain Morrison had found the first one, a massive structure buried beneath the surface of Mars that had somehow remained hidden from human detection for decades. When his team activated it using the quantum keys from the archive files, the installation had come online as if it had been waiting for them. The technology here is incredible, Morrison reported from the Martian facility. It's like the entire installation was designed to teach us how to use builder technology safely. There are training programs, simulation systems, and what appears to be a complete database of builder scientific knowledge. Any sign of the weapon systems the Council is so afraid of? Hamilton asked. Oh, they're here. Weapons that could destroy star systems, shields that could protect entire planets, and something called a reality anchor that I don't even pretend to understand. But everything is locked behind safety protocols that require multiple operators. With specific genetic markers, they designed it so that only their descendants could use it, and only if they were working together. Dr. Price observed, which means we need to find the other human populations. Hamilton realized that was proving to be more difficult than expected. The Council had been very thorough in their collection efforts over the millennia. According to the archive files, most of the scattered human groups had been located and either eliminated or brought to the research facilities on Nexus Primebut. Captain Morrison had found evidence that at least one group had escaped the Council's attention. Deep space sensor arrays were detecting quantum signatures from the galactic rim that matched builder technology patterns. There's a human population out there, he reported. And from the energy readings, they're a lot more advanced than we are. The revelation that humanity wasn't alone in the galaxy came at exactly the wrong time. Supreme Chancellor Vorix 9 had tired of waiting for diplomatic solutions and had authorized the deployment of the Council's ultimate weapon, a device that could sterilize entire star systems by collapsing their dimensional foundations. We cannot allow another builder catastrophe, he announced to the assembled fleet commanders. If humanity will not accept voluntary limitation, then we must implement involuntary extinction. The Council fleet that emerged from hyperspace near Earth was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all armed with weapons designed specifically to counter builder technology, but as they moved into attack position, something unexpected happened. Space itself began to ripple around Earth, and massive structures began to phase into reality. The builder failsafe systems weren't just hidden installations on planets. They were entire fleets that had been waiting in dimensional storage for thousands of years. President Hamilton watched from the command center on Earth as humanity's ancient heritage finally revealed itself. Ships the size of moons emerged from folded space, their hulls crackling with energy that made the Council fleet's weapons look like toys. "This is Admiral Sarah Knox of the Builder Reserve Fleet," came a transmission from the largest of the ancient ships. "We are the descendants of the second colony, and we have been waiting a very long time for our cousins on Earth to awaken." The Admiral's image appeared on the main screen, showing a woman who looked completely human except for her eyes, which seemed to contain swirling galaxies. The Council made a mistake when they assumed all Builder descendants were helpless. She continued, "We have spent the last 3,000 years preparing for this day, building the technology needed to defend ourselves without repeating our ancestors." Era's Supreme Chancellor Vorix IX found himself facing exactly the scenario that the Council had been created to prevent. Two groups of Builder descendants were reuniting, and they had access to technology that could reshape reality itself. But this time, humanity had learned from the mistakes of the past. They understood the dangers of unlimited power and the importance of restraint. The question now was whether the Galactic Council would accept that the age of their dominance was over, or whether they would force a confrontation that could destroy everything as the two fleets faced each other across the void of space. President Hamilton realized that the future of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The secret the Council had hidden for so long was finally revealed, and now everyone would have to live with the consequences. The age of the Builders had returned, but this time they would not repeat the mistakes that had nearly destroyed the universe. Whether the galaxy would accept that change remained to be seen.